welcome to Introduction to Business, Business 101, Chapter 7, Management and Leadership Online with Professor Joe Lane. Yay, because you finished Unit 1, Chapters 1 through 6. How'd it go? Hope you did well on test number 1. Now, if people ask me, what's your favorite course that you teach? Because I teach several courses here. The favorite course that I teach probably is the course that I'm teaching at that particular time. I love all the courses, but probably the thing that I enjoy the most as it relates to these courses is management. And if you look over here, I said, welcome to Business 210. It's like, wait a minute. This isn't Business 210. This is Business 101. And you're right. But let me tell you what Business 210 is. Business 210 is Principles of Management. And in chapters 7 through 11, all of Unit 2, we're going to be talking about management. Now, that's a change for our author and for our text. Chapters 1 through 6, we jumped around into a number of different topics. Chapter 1, it was here's business. Chapter 2, we got into economics. Chapter 3, we got into global trade and global business. Chapter 4, we got into ethics and social responsibility. Chapter 5, we talked about forms of business ownership. Chapter 6, entrepreneurship, starting your own business. So we talked about 6 maybe somewhat related but very different topics. Chapters 7 through 11, we're going to be talking about one overarching topic, and that's management. And when you get through with Introduction to Business, a lot of folks will ask me, Professor Lane, what's the next course I need to take in business? And it's either I always recommend Business 210, Principles of Management, or Business 201, Principles of Marketing. And by the way, we're going to be hitting those chapters in Unit 3. So we are in the management section. 7 through 11 are all things pertaining specifically to management. And management, as I mentioned to you, that's my most funnest area. My degrees are in management. My work experience is in management. I was in top management for a lot of years prior to coming to Delta Community College. I actually served as head of the Business and Technology Department for a good while, Dean of the School of Business out here. For about the last 4 or 5 years, I have stepped down. I said, the management part, I've done that for a lot of years. I just want to teach and work with students, advise and help students be successful. So that's what I've been doing the last several years. But I love management. So anyway, I thought I would just kind of introduce this particular chapter in this section this way. All right. Is management important in a business? Yes. Is management vital in a business? Yes. Can you have a successful business without effective management? No. It ain't going to happen. 1 chance in 4 million, but it's not going to happen. Managers are the ones that make things happen in the right direction. Managers are the ones that are responsible for leading the business in the direction that the business is supposed to be led. We'll talk about that. And is responsible for the business to be successful, profitable, giving back to society, social responsibility, all that sort of thing. I mean, what if you went to work for a company and the company was this big, huge building, and there was maybe a couple of hundred people in that building? I guess it'd have to be social distancing, okay? And so you walk in and they say, we're glad to have you with us. Get to work. What do? Go to work. Go out there and start doing something. So you go out and you say, I just got here. What am I supposed to do? Person says, well, this is what I do, and he does this, and I'm not sure what those two do, but we just come here every day and we do something, and we leave and come back the next day. I don't think that business is going to last very long. Plus, I don't think you're going to enjoy it. Is there any pride, any accomplishment, in doing business like that? No. Management is essential. Now, again, management's my thing. A lot of you, we've talked about a lot of folks like to be maybe own their own business. Okay? Well, that's true. But a lot of people like the idea of managing people, managing an operation, overseeing something, the challenge of managing something and making it happen. Managing a baseball team, managing a choir group, managing a business. Okay. So let's look, and I guess I should, at the very top of this, I said the manager's role is changing. Let me throw out what I mean there. 100 years ago, early 1900s, I was not born, I just know this, management was really pretty easy. And you really weren't called the manager, you were called the boss. What did the boss do? The boss told you what to do. What did you do? You did it. What if you didn't like it? You did it. What if you didn't want to do it? You did it. What if you said you weren't going to do it? You're fired. Really pretty easy. I tell you what to do, you do it. If I need you to talk to me, I'll tell you. Otherwise, do your work. Like I tell you to, when I tell you to. Okay, let's fast forward 100 or so years. Businesses today, big business? Yes. Competitive business? Yes, businesses are competitive. Got to be profitable to stay in business? Yes. Technology changing a lot? Yes. Just a lot of change going on? Yes. A little more difficult these days to be successful? Yes. I probably have given you this statistic, but a business that starts, statistically speaking, in 5 years, it's not going to be in existence anymore. More businesses fail after 5 years than succeed. So, what's one of the keys to being a successful business? Well, who makes businesses operate? Who does the vast majority of the work? Employees. What kind of employee do you want to hire in your business? I want to hire good employees. Okay. Well, what are good employees? Employees that are honest, dependable, reliable, motivated, want to do a good job, have pride, have some experience, have some education. I want to hire good people. Well, I'll tell you, that's the kind of person you need if you want your business to be successful. All right, now let's pretend right now, or we don't like to pretend, probably in a lot of cases it's going to be true. If you're working somewhere for a company right now and you're not in management, you're an employee. They probably hired you because they thought you were going to be and are a good employee. Let's say you are dependable and motivated and reliable and honest, and you have some skills and you have some experience and you have some education. You're a good employee. Do you want to be talked down to as an employee? Do you want your boss to tell you, do what I tell you to do, keep your mouth shut. If you don't like it, hit the road. Is that how you want to be treated? No, it's not how you want to be treated. You're a good employee. You bring a lot of value to the business. You bring a lot of value to that business. For that business to be successful, you got stuff as an employee that business needs. You don't want to be talked down to. You don't want to be treated unfairly. You want to be respected for who you are. Okay. So the role of the boss has gone away. Now there are still some bosses around that like to do it their way, don't talk to me. We got to get rid of most of them, okay? There may be a very, very few situations where you still need a boss. A Marine drill sergeant needs to be a boss, okay? All right. But in most businesses today, especially when you're interacting with customers and this sort of thing, the vast majority, they want to hire good people. And you can't boss good people. You got to manage good people. You got to manage them. What's the difference? Okay, let me get this out of the way. I may need it later. What's the difference? Bosses boss people. Do it, be quiet, and keep doing it. That doesn't work with you. And that doesn't work with me. And that doesn't work with the vast majority of good employees in 2020. So what does a manager need to do in 2020? They need to motivate employees, influence employees, train employees, mentor employees, coach employees. Yeah, they're the manager, and they do give instruction, and they do have authority. But mixed with that authority are these other skills that managers have to be able to successfully manage people. Hey, listen, you want good employees, and I'll tell you the second thing, you want to keep them. Because if you get them all trained up and you get them all familiar with the job and everything, and they leave because they've got a boss they can't stand, that causes a lot of problem to the company. You kind of get the idea? Okay. I threw this over here too. Just let me finish this up. The overarching thing that businesses have to do is please the customer. The customer does not have to do business with you, because there's a lot of other businesses normally that they can go to. So just keep this in mind. When we're talking about management, we're talking about all this kind of stuff. Who is the ultimate boss of a business? The ultimate boss is not the board of directors, it's not the CEO, it's the customer. So should everybody in the business be keeping that customer in mind as they go about doing business? The answer is yes. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out. Now, if you're looking at your beautifully prepared handout, hey, it's pretty good actually. Now, it's not all typed out and cute, I understand that. We're back to the other kind. But it's pretty good. When you get through with chapter 7, you're going to have to pretty well be familiar with this and what all this is talking about. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're looking at yours, if you printed out your chapter notes, make sure that you've got these in front of you as we go about doing this particular chapter. Okay, let's look. Let's go. Definition of management. The process means it's ongoing. Management is continually going. The process used to accomplish organizational goals. Businesses have goals that they need to accomplish. Sometimes you call them goals, sometimes you call them objectives, sometimes you call them policies, procedures, but businesses have goals. Okay, and I'll tell you, we'll talk about where they come from in a minute. The process used to accomplish organizational goals through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling employees and other organizational resources. Management is a process used to accomplish organizational goals through planning, organizing, leading, controlling employees and other organizational resources. Excuse me. That's a definition that you need to know. Definition you need to know. So that's the definition of management. Now, in that definition, we talked about 4 things that managers need to do. Now, managers talk on the phone, managers do this, that, and the other, but in their function as a manager, they perform 4 functions that you need to know. Managers plan, they organize, they lead, and they control. So I think I'll put that right over here. Managers plan, managers organize, they lead, and they control. All right. When they're planning, what do you do when you plan? You figure out what you're going to do. What am I going to do? What am I getting ready to do? All of you are probably big planners. You have to plan because you've got so much going on. What is organizing? Once you determine your plan, well, here's my plan, then you've got to organize how you're going to get it done. Okay. Leading, if it takes more than just you to get that plan done, you've got to lead others in being able to accomplish that plan. And that plan is usually expressed in some sort of a goal or objective. That's how you express that plan. And then lastly, you've got to make sure that that plan that you have, that you've gotten organized, and the people that are helping you are moving in the right direction to be accomplished. That's control. You've got to control things to make sure you're actually going to accomplish that plan. So I want you to know the 4 functions that all managers perform. How many of these? All managers do this. Does that mean they do it 25%, 25, 25, 25? No. Does that mean some managers may do more of one than another? Yes. But a manager in his or her job as a manager, they're going to plan, they're going to organize, they're going to lead, they're going to control. So I want you to know those 4 functions. Now, if you're following me in your book, if you have your text, I may be skipping around a little bit on you in chapter 7. I'm kind of going to go with my notes, but it's all in chapter 7, so relax. If these are the functions that managers perform, what are the skills that managers have to have? Managers have to have 3 skills. Technical skills, human resource or human skills, and conceptual skills. What's the difference between functions and skills? What's the difference? Here's the difference. Functions are what managers do. Skills are what gives them the opportunity or the ability to do them. Skills are between my 2 ears. Functions are what they perform. All right. Technical skills. Do managers need to be able to do certain things? If you are the director of the IT department, do you need to be able to recognize a computer? Do you need to be pretty familiar with computers and programs and pretty familiar with what the IT department does? Yes, because how can you direct the department and how can you mentor, train, coach your employees if you don't know what in the world they're doing? Now that doesn't mean you have to be an expert on every single thing that every single one of them do, but you've got to be versed in IT. If you are in human resources, do you need to have some skills as it relates to working with people? Skills on maybe how you go out and try to recruit people. Here at Delta, we have an enrollment services area where we have somebody who's director of recruiting. That's a management position. Do they need to have some skills, some technical skills in how to recruit? Yeah. Let's talk about up here at the top of the organizational structure. Let's talk about the chief financial officer. Do people at the top have to have some technical skills? Yeah. The chief financial officer, budgeting skills, how to prepare a budget. Okay. I'll skip this one. Conceptual skills. The ability to see the big picture, to conceptualize and to analyze a situation. Okay. Can you conceptualize that? I've heard people say that. That means, can you see it? If you're a manager, have you got to be able to see it before you can lead other people? Before you can accomplish it? There's a goal here, I can't see it, but I'm trying to get to it. Well, you got to be able to see it. And then you got to show it to other people. You got to show it to your employees. Conceptual skills are the ability to see the big picture and to analyze things, be analytical. HR skills, those are human skills. You got to have people skills. You got to be able to communicate with people. You got to be able to work with people. I tell people when you get in business 210 with me, if you don't like people, don't be a manager. Please, please. If you don't like people, don't be a manager. Go do something else. Do something else, but don't be a manager. because you're going to be miserable, they're going to be miserable, and the company's going to be in a mess. All right. So those are the three. So I would know the definition of management. I would know the 3 skills that managers must have. I know the 4 functions that managers must perform. Okay. Let's get into this thing. Let's make sure we know what we have here. This is an organizational structure, okay, or an organizational chart. It shows you an organization. I don't know what organization this is, but let's say this is the chief executive officer, he or she. Maybe this is a couple of vice presidents here. If you hear something in the background, they are seems like drag racing up and down the hallway. I am assuming what they're doing is doing some waxing here on the hallway, but I'll try to make sure I talk loud enough that as they make a pass by the door here, you can hear me. These might be regional vice presidents. These may be executive vice presidents. These may be divisional managers. These may be store managers. These may be departmental managers. These may be, I'm not sure how it's broken up, but all these circles represent people, and there's all kind of folks here. And all these are levels of management. These are management people doing management stuff. But eventually you come down here to what probably the majority of the employees are, and this manager has these employees, this manager has other employees, and this manager has other employees. And what we call these folks here, we call these folks first line managers. These are the managers all these managers are managers that manage employees, people that are not management. That's something to kind of think about here, is that all these other managers up down to this point right here, all these other managers, they manage other managers. That chief executive officer, they directly manage maybe a couple of executive vice presidents, something like that. But these managers down here, they manage non-managerial employees. As a matter of fact, we have a course here at Delta that talks specifically about how to be a successful first line manager. That course is called Business 211. I teach it. I'd love to have you in it sometimes. It's a core elective, and we'll talk about those later on. But anyway, so I want you to make sure you know what this is, what the organizational chart is all about. So this is the company. I've put out the organizational chart. I'm thinking maybe they're trying to mow down the door or knock down the door here. At least he's gotten a little quieter. He doesn't know that I'm in here because I've got the door closed and I've got the door locked, and I was basically out. This happens to be a Saturday morning, basically out here by myself. But I found out there's someone else who now seems to be parked in front of the door. But that's a different story. We'll make it. We know kind of what this chart is here. We know what we're talking about. All right. So knowing that, let's start down through here and let's look at some stuff. What is a vision? Do you have a vision for your life? You do. You may not call it that, but you do. What is a vision? It's where you're headed, why you exist. Your vision is, here's where I'm going. Delta Community College is a big part of your vision because this is helping you go somewhere that you're wanting to go. What company should have a vision? Correct. All companies. If you don't know where you're going, you ain't going to get there. Now, right along with a vision is a mission statement. You should also have a mission statement. What is a mission statement? Your fundamental purpose. Here is where I'm going. Here's why I exist. Here's my fundamental purpose for what I'm doing. What company should have a fundamental purpose? You got it, all of them. If you ain't got no purpose and you ain't got no vision, how can you do much of anything else but wander around? Same thing with you and I. You don't have a vision, you don't have a purpose, so what do? Just get up, eat, walk around, and go back to bed? Well, the fact that y'all are here and y'all are getting your education tells me that you have a lot of vision, you have a lot of purpose. Okay, so we've got vision and purpose. I want you to be familiar. Virtually, if it's on here, you have to be familiar with it. Except for the fact you've got to know this, you've got to know these, you've got to know the definition of management. Be familiar with vision, be familiar with mission statement. Okay, let's do this next. Right up here is at this management up here. The folks that, I've kind of put the dotted black line. What do you think you call this level of management? Because this is management that's at the what? It's at the top. So maybe we call this top management. That wasn't too hard, was it? What do you call this? Middle? Got it. This is middle management. Right down here. What do you call this? Bottom management? Well, yeah, I like to call it first line or supervisory management. And then, like we said, we have employees. Remember, that's what we made that statement. All of these managers manage other managers. It's just these first line managers that manage non-managerial employees. So we've got top, middle, and first line management, supervisory management. Okay. Top management does what's called strategic planning. If something's strategic, is that pretty important? Yes. If something's strategic, it's pretty important. So top management does strategic long-term planning. I guess I could put that underneath here, long-term. 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. Used to companies would do maybe 20-year long-term planning. You can't do that anymore, not really. Because everything's changing so fast in this day and time, you can't look out there 20 years. They may tell you can, but you can't. Long-term planning is shorter than that now. So you would do, top management does strategic, longer-term planning, and they set the goals, the overall goals for the organization. All right. Now, based upon these long-term plans and these long-term goals, middle management sits in the middle, they do tactical planning. This may be 1 to 2 year. I'll call this shorter term planning. And these shorter term planning, they set certain objectives. Down here at the first line level, you call that operational. Operations, day-to-day operational stuff. So this is, I'll call this day-to-day or week-to-week type planning. And they establish policies and rules and procedures to be able to accomplish what they're doing. All right. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting, but I want you to see if you can understand this. Where should the strategic plans come from? When top management is putting together strategic plans, what should they be basing them on? Look, just kind of look at the chart. What's above strategic planning? The mission statement and the vision. So based upon where I want to go, why I exist, and my fundamental purpose, we establish strategic plans. Does that make sense? These strategic long-term plans are to allow us to do this, to move where we want to go and accomplish our purpose. And we set those long-term goals. All right? Tactical planning. Middle management, where do they get their marching orders to do their shorter-term planning? Yeah, you got it. From the strategic plans. Based upon these strategic plans, they set up shorter-term tactical plans and objectives that have to be accomplished. Operational planning. These frontline supervisors that are working with employees. Let's say this is a manufacturing company and they manufacture a particular product or products. Their day-to-day operational or week-to-week operational plan on what they're going to produce, how they're going to produce, how many that they're going to produce, the policies, procedures, the rules that they have in place to do that production, what's that depend on? The tactical plans. The tactical plans set up, the shorter-term plans set up what these folks at this level do on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. So it flows down. From here, planning starts here in that the fact this is the fundamental purpose and reason for existence. And then you have strategic planning leads to tactical planning, leads to operational planning. Strategic plan. We want a 10% increase in market share. Tactical plan, middle management says to get a 10% increase in market share, we're going to have to come out with 2 new products. So they start developing that. Operational planning, these folks gear up to produce 2 new products in addition to the other products that they're producing. So many per week, so when you see, kind of get the idea, it flows down. But look at this. The planning flows down. But remember, you've got to put action to your plans. You got to get organized and you got to put action. Plans are great. I've had this plan to do so-and-so. When did you have that plan? Oh, I got that plan about 10 years ago. Man, I love that plan. I haven't heard anything about it. It's just a plan, just laying there doing nothing. Plans are no good. It's kind of like budgets. Hey, I've got a budget. I put together a great budget for my expenses and my income. Oh, you ever use it? Oh, no, I never use it. Doesn't do you any good. All right. So we got to put action to our plans. But now watch this. To accomplish all this, how does that have to happen? Operational planning, this has to be accomplished first. To be able to accomplish this, that's to be able to accomplish this, that's able to accomplish this. You see? You see how that works? Planning and everything flows downward. But the actions and the accomplishments flow upward. That's a great concept. You got to understand that. So when you're doing planning, hey look, when these people are doing strategic planning up here, it's their responsibility. Should they maybe get other people involved? Should they get some thoughts and everything from these other people? Yeah, why? Because these are people that's going to be doing it. See how that works? See how that works? That's called strategic management. But you don't get to that until you get in Business 210. Just kind of get the basic idea here. All right. Have you ever made a plan? I've been told. My wife texted me a little bit ago, and said that our family is going to kind of get together this afternoon and cook hamburgers. Okay. Now, it was real cloudy. I've got in my recording studio here. The blinds are closed. So I have no idea what it's doing. The only way if I know if it's doing anything outside is if it's thundering and lightning really loud, or if it's raining really loud and I can hear it. Otherwise, I can't. So I don't know what it's doing outside, but I know when I came in here, it was pretty cloudy and it was expecting to rain. Okay, so matter of fact, my son is going to be cooking the hamburgers. Good deal. Especially since I'm up here for the majority of the day. So that being the case, what if it rains? So my wife said, that our son was going to cook the hamburgers on the grill and everything, but he could move things under the carport if need be. So he has a backup plan, or they have a backup plan plan B. You know what backup plans are called? Contingency plans. Is it a good idea to have a contingency plan, a backup plan? It really is. It really is. So in planning, this strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning flows this way, action and success flows this way, and you need to have contingency plans. Wow. I'd be familiar with top management, middle management, first line management, what we said about it, the vision, the mission statement, tactical planning, setting goals, strategic planning, setting goals, tactical planning, setting objectives, operational planning, setting policies, procedures, and rules. I'd be familiar with what contingency plans are. Okay? Just what we said, what we talked about here. If you made it through chapters 1 through 6, you should be able to pick this up pretty quick. Hey, it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. That's how management works. And can you kind of tell how everybody's kind of in this together? Even though the CEO, he or she is the CEO, they can't do it by themselves, nor can anybody else. It takes everyone working together smartly, working together in an organized manner with good management to be able to accomplish the policies, procedures, objectives, goals to move the company towards its mission statement and its vision. All right, let me look at my handout. Staffing. Now, we've already talked about staffing from the point of view that you've got to have good people. You've got to have good people, and you've got to keep good people. So I'd be familiar with what staffing is. It's kind of cute. You remember, I'm an artist anyway. Staffing is getting the right people at the right time. So staffing involves you making sure you hire the right people at the right time. Okay. The next part of this chapter has to do with decision making. Managers make decisions. In planning, they make decisions. In organizing, they make decisions. In leading and controlling, managers make decisions. You've got to make good decisions. Poor decisions will cause you to get off track, not be able to do what it is you need to do, to not be successful. The way you don't want to make decisions is, well, I don't know. You got right to the point of time where I had to make a decision. I had to do something. This is what I did. Well, maybe you got real lucky and it worked. Most times it's going to get to the point where it's not going to work. Decision making is a process, or should be. You should go through a process to make decisions. If you go through a thought process, your decisions are going to be much better than if you don't. Now, if we had had this class face-to-face, which is what I would have normally done in the summer in Business 101, what I was going to do is on the day that we covered this, which would be in probably Monday of week number 2, I was going to bring in for us some tattoo artists. And I was going to have the tattoo artist, free of charge to you, tattoo the decision-making process, the decision-making steps on your body, somewhere that would be easily readable, okay? Hands, arms, that sort of thing. And in that way, whenever you had to make a decision, all you would have to do is look at the decision-making steps that had been tattooed on you, and you'd have got it. Well, unfortunately, the coronavirus came along, and you're not going to be able to get your tattoos. I was going to make them kind of pretty and everything, but you can't do it. So the next best thing, in your study guide or in your chapter notes, the decision-making steps. This is something else, by the way, that's pretty well printed out. All right. I want you to know the decision-making steps. Know them. Because as a manager, to be effective, you've got to make good decisions. Now, what I want you to know is the stuff that's in the big print. There's 6 things, 6 steps. What's in the large print? That's what you need to know. So let's talk about the decision-making steps. When you're getting ready to make a decision, First of all, identify the problem or the situation or the opportunity. What is the decision I need to make? Before you make a decision, what is the problem? What is, it's terrible to make a decision, but the decision doesn't help you because that's not really what you need to make a decision on. So in decision-making steps, first of all, make sure you know this is the decision I need that will help me do what I need to do. Number 2, gather information. Don't shoot from the hip. Oh, I know what to do. Gather information. Step number 3, develop alternatives. Step number 4, evaluate each alternative. Step number 5, choose that alternative and implement it. Step number 6, follow up, check results. You say, that doesn't sound like such a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a process on how you do decision making. You are one of these first line supervisors. You're supervising employees. And we'll keep you we could have you in a retail. You could be in a retail clothing store, or you could be in a manufacturing. But whatever you're in, you walk in one day to your department and there's 2 people on the floor fighting. 2 of your employees are fighting on the floor. Well, first of all, they need to be separated. Best done by security. Don't you jump in there and do it. If you have security available, they should be the ones to do it. Okay. Now, your company does not have a policy about fighting. Some companies have a policy, if employees fight, they're automatically terminated. But your company doesn't have a policy. It's basically left up to you and your company what you're going to do. I did it that way because I want to use the decision-making steps. Okay, let's use the steps. By the way, what you would need to do is to get them, what I would do, I would get them separated. I would talk to both of them separately, and then I would send them home and tell them to come back the next day. And you would tell them what you were going to do as a result of this happening. Be here on the job promptly at 8 o'clock in the morning. That gives me basically a day to make the decision. I could have made it 2 days. Or I could have made the decision in less than a day, but I chose the importance of this decision. I chose to give myself a day. Okay. Now, let's go about using the decision-making process. I'm going to go off camera here and get a little water, okay? Step number 1, identify the problem. Have you got a problem? Sure do. You got 2 employees that are fighting. Step number 2, gather information. Okay, you've already talked to the 2 employees. Who else are you going to talk to? How about the other employees that saw it? If it was a retail situation, might there be customers? Check out the video camera, if there is one. You might want to talk to human resources to get their advice. What about one of your other co-supervisors, another peer that might can give you some thoughts of information? What about your boss to let them know, see if they have anything? So you got to gather information from as many sources as you can as far as what happened and why it happened. Okay, you've gathered information. You got to do a good job with that. Now, you can't spend 30 days gathering information. You've got a day to get this done, and that's reasonable. But you got to work at it. That's got to be your focus for the day. Step number 3, develop alternatives. What's the worstest thing you can do to those 2 people? Fire them, right? What's the leastest thing you can do to those 2 people? Don't do nothing. Now, if any of you are watching this or saying, well, that's not what you... Don't start evaluating nothing. You're putting alternatives on the table. Don't start trying to figure out what you're going to do until you get all your alternatives laid out there. One alternative is to fire them. Another alternative is to do nothing. What else can you use? A verbal reprimand? A written reprimand? Change shifts? Transfer them? Suspend them? You've got to lay out all the alternatives. If you start evaluating before you lay all the alternatives out, you've messed up in making the optimum decision possible. It's not the way it works. Lay them all out. Even if you think, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But is it something you could do? Yes, then lay it out. Then, step number 4, evaluate the alternatives. Do nothing. I can't do that because this is serious. These people are fighting. This is a serious thing. People could be hurt. The co-workers, are they going to want to know what's going to go on and what you're going to do? Sure, big deal. So you can't do it. So you evaluate down. You eliminate until you get the alternative that you think is best. When they come in the next day at 8 o'clock, you give them, you make the decision. You tell them what you're going to do. What you're going to do to this one, what's going to happen with this one, what's going to happen with this one. You have made a decision, you implement that decision. And then you follow up and check the results of your decision. That's the decision-making process. Okay? And that's what you should use every time. Now, some decisions are pretty easy. Do I have to use the decision-making process every time? All right, I'll give you an example where you don't. I'd be willing to bet of those people that are watching this video, 90% of you have probably brushed your teeth today. I hope maybe 100% of you have. Was that a big decision? I have a problem. My teeth are not brushed. Gather information. No teeth. No, I have not brushed them. Toothpaste. You don't have to do that. That's just an automatic. It's an automatic. But in the world of business, you have to make a lot of decisions, and most of those decisions are not just automatic. If the coffee machine runs out of paper, that's an automatic. Get more paper. But most of your decisions, because a lot of your decisions involve your employees, use the decision-making steps. Use the decision-making steps. Know those decision-making steps. Where's my handout? I've lost it. I don't know where I put it. I really don't know where I put it. Found it. Leadership styles. As a manager, are you going to be a leader? Yes. Planning, organize, lead. Leading is leading what? It's leading people. You're going to be a leader. Is it enough to be a leader? No, you got to be an effective leader. You got to be an effective manager. You got to be an effective leader. All right? So you've got to learn how. Fortunately, and we get into this in Business 210, some people seem to be almost born leaders. Other people learn to be leaders. As a manager, are you going to have to lead? Yes. Can you learn to be a good leader? The answer is yes. All right. So let's talk about leadership styles. There's 3 styles of leadership that our author talks about here. One more time, off camera. I'll be right back. One more. You get this makeup and everything. You got to keep it going. One more. It talks about leadership styles. Okay. Autocratic, participative, and free reign. I'd like for you to be familiar with those 3 types or 3 styles of leadership. Autocratic leadership is where when you have decisions to make, you make them yourself. You're an autocratic leader. A decision comes up, you evaluate, you make this decision yourself. Autocratic leader, leadership style. Is that okay? That's okay. But there's some other leadership styles. There's the democratic or participative leadership style. This is where you have a decision to make, just like before. But you get input from other people. You ask maybe your employees for advice before you make the decision. Could that be a good idea sometimes? It could, couldn't it? Because, even though you know what to do, they may have thought of something you hadn't thought about. Or how about this? Do you think it makes them feel good that you asked them? What about who's going to carry out your decision more than likely? Your employees are. Are they going to buy into that decision a little bit more if they've had an opportunity at least to give you some input on what they think? Yeah. So there's some good reasons to use the participative or the democratic style. Sometimes, though, you may not have the time or whatever, and you have to use the autocratic style. So sometimes you may do autocratic. Sometimes you may do democratic. Now, what's this third one? The free reign or participative style. Free reign goes a little bit further. There's a decision to be made. And what you do is you put the parameters. You say, okay, between this and this, y'all come up with the solution. What do you think we should do? Talking to your employees. You offer the decision, and I'll determine whether we want to go with that or not. Now, you see the difference? In an autocratic leadership style, you make the decision yourself. In a democratic or participative style, you make the decision, but you get information advice from others. And in the free reign, or what they call the laissez-faire, I may have said that wrong a minute ago, leadership style, free reign, you set the boundaries, but let them make the decisions within those boundaries. That gives them not only the opportunity to advise, but the opportunity to make the decision. If you have a department or you have an area where you have very, very experienced people that have proven to be very good, sometimes you might want to use free reign. Set the boundaries for them, but let them go with it themselves. Good training for them. Which leadership style is best? Well, I'd say this first. You need to know, what leadership style do you use? What's your prevalent leadership style? When you have a decision to make, do you tend to be autocratic, participative, or democratic, or free reign? You need to know what your style is. I know what my style is. My style is participative or democratic. I like to involve other people. That's the style I normally use. All right. So you need to know what is your dominant style. You also need to be able to use all three. If you're going to be an effective manager and effective leader, you've got to be able to use all three. There are going to be times when you need to be autocratic. There's going to be times you need to be participative or democratic. There's going to be times that you need to be free reign. Now, here's the style I'm going to use most of the time. But sometimes I may need to use this, or I may need to use this. And if that's the case, you need to be able to use all three of those leadership styles. So the best one is the one that fits the particular situation. Now for Jolene, day in and day out, and decisions that I have to make and I have made in my career, more often than not, I used democratic. There were times that I had really, really, really good people. I always had good people, but I had really good people, and a decision came up. It was just easier, hey, y'all, here's the parameters, y'all make the decision and go with it. Just tell me what you're going to do. And then there were other times things came up that I needed to make the decision. It needed to be my decision and mine alone, and I made it. Okay. Two other things, I guess, and we'll be through with this chapter. Empowered employees. I'm going to get more into that probably later, but for right now, an empowered employee. Empowered employees are employees that have authority and responsibility given to them by their supervisor. Okay. Let's go down here, because I'm using this level right here. You are, your first job as a management job after finishing your degree and everything, you're maybe this first line supervisor here, and you have non-managerial employees. Well, when you go into, if you're a customer and you go into a business, a lot of times you don't see the manager. Who do you see? You see the employees. So your impression of how good or bad that business is really is dependent upon the employees. So it's really important If you want to be an effective manager, if you want to be an effective leader, if you want to have a successful company at all levels, empower your employees, empower your managers, empower your non-managerial employees. Give the authority and responsibility to do the job which they are supposed to do. Okay? If you don't let's go down to this employee level. If the employee has to come back to you for every little decision about every little thing, do I have to stack the shoes on shelf 2 or shelf 3? How do I handle this with this customer? You should be empowered to be able to make certain decisions on your own for your level, the level that you're on. So empowering employees is simply giving employees the authority and responsibility to do their job. Managers at every level should empower the employees underneath them. That period. Managers should empower their employees. True. Yes. Yes. Because that's how you can be effective. All right. I think maybe the last thing in this chapter, the control process. Now here's where we're talking. We've got all this stuff going, all these plans, we've done all this stuff, organized, we're leading. All right. Here's the goal. Here's the goal for the company. If you're down here, here's your goal or objective that you're following. You're heading in this direction. And as long as you stay in this direction, you're going to accomplish that goal, that objective, that policy, whatever it is you're trying to do. You're going to make sure that your input for the month is what it's supposed to be, your manufacturing quota, whatever. All right. If you start doing this, you're off target. Your goal's over there. You've got to get back and move back towards this and head back towards that goal. That's what control is. Control. Some people say, well, I don't like control. It's not that kind of control. It's control that goes on to make sure that you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And that's what everybody wants to do. Because when you accomplish your policies, procedures, objectives, your goals, then you are successful, your company's successful, your employees are successful. So control is a very important part of everything. This is the control process. I think the only thing I'd like for you to be familiar with, and if I haven't said it lately, I want you to be familiar with the leadership styles. I want you to be familiar with what an empowered employee is. We've got to know the decision-making steps. Under the control process, the number one thing you have to do is establish clear performance standards. What that means is you've got to know where you're going. You've got to know, you set standards of performance. If you reach these standards, if we produce in our department at this level for this period of time, we're going to meet the objective or goal that we have. So you have a standard of performance that you're looking to meet. The first thing in control is you've got to have clear standards. If you don't know what it is you're trying to accomplish, you can't control to get there because you don't know where you're going. Does that make sense? Okay. That's chapter 7. That's a pretty good chapter. Chapter 7 is kind of like chapter 1. It's that first chapter in management. It's got a lot of stuff. This is going to be so much fun for you. You may want to bring a couple of friends over, pop some popcorn, and watch video number for chapter 7 a second time. I think we've talked about the nose. I think we've talked about to be familiar with. You get this chapter down here, chapters 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as it relates to management, you got it. Because you've got the basics of management down. And who knows, that may be your field, is management. I love management. I love leading folks. I love accomplishing goals. I love accomplishing objectives. Maybe the thing that you want to do as well. Okay, it is time to sign off of chapter 7. And my executive producer, as you know, has to have a loud noise to sign off. So let me do a loud noise and we'll sign off. We have finished the first chapter in the management section. Now, I'll see you in chapter 8.